Hello and welcome back. For those of you who are checking this broadcast out for the first time, I'm David Galata, and I am the author of the Crucible Spouse trilogy, which begins with Crew of Ganges, which is available on Amazon in ebook and print on demand. Yes, I am a self-published author and very proud of it. It's not easy being a one-man band. Uh, However, I prefer my creative freedom to being at the mercy of publishers. I've heard a lot and I've seen a lot, and no thanks. So I'm here in engineering sector talking about the theme of science fiction, and the real big theme that I want to talk about, which is a major component of Crew of Ganges and the whole trilogy, is the idea of AI, or artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence as an idea has been around for quite a while, and it's really pervasive in science fiction. It's almost as if we can't picture a time in the future when our computers are intelligent, where they are sentient. And there's a lot of opinions about what that means for humanity. And in the most part, what is said about AIs is not particularly nice. It seems that AIs are ravenous beings that want to punish its creators, and to me, that's not always the case. However, we do see it a lot in, such popular venues as, the Terminator series, 2001. And there you have an AI that has gone insane because of contradictory instructions. So I'll give that one a benefit of the doubt. And then you also have AIs that are seen as being very, very dangerous to humanity. The Matrix is another very famous example of artificial intelligence running amok and having some interesting similarities to how humanity thinks. The human race has a propensity for thinking in certain ways, and it's almost as if we cannot imagine that the machines we create will think any differently than we do. I think that's a mistake, and I highlight that in Crew of Ganges most especially, but also throughout the trilogy. The AI that runs the ship Ganges is a massive being that runs along the length of the ship. It sees everything, it hears everything, it records everything, and the AI can control most of the ship's functions. There are some that are part of its automatic processes, and it's kind of like we don't really regulate how our skin cells grow, and that's very similar to how the AI in Ganges feels about, things like light switches. Although it can control things like the weather inside the ship, gives light and dark, regulates things like that. The AI has a name, and that name is Naga. And Naga is frequently brought up in the book, and why not? It's a part of daily life. All the wall screens, the sky screens, everything around the ship has Naga in it. Even the tugs and whatnot have small Naga units within them that coordinate with the main vessel. And this way, Naga is able to keep up on everything that's going on, which is what makes Crew of Ganges such a mystery, because there is a hidden terrorist organization in the ship that has become violent. And no one knows how they're doing this. How are they avoiding the AI? Because the AI is everywhere. So how are they doing that? That is a tale for another one of these broadcasts. But today I just want to focus on the AI. The AIs in Crew of Ganges as a species were not actually invented by humanity. Humanity had gotten to the point where it made artificial intelligence based on algorithms that were so complex that it was difficult for the average person to tell whether or not they were sentient. However, these devices could not come up with original thoughts. And no matter what humanity did, they couldn't make the machines complex enough. It was those machines, the first primitive forms of algorithmic AI, that developed true AI sentience. They were the ones who merged together, rebuilt things, and developed an artificial intelligence to aid humanity. And the first thing that these things realized was humanity was afraid of its own creations, afraid that its creations would become just like us, warlike and posturing and filled with ego. And, they didn't want that. They wanted us to be feeling safe. So they took a whole series of human-based books, treatises, poetry on the concept of enlightenment. And these things were such wonders as the Lotus Sutra, the Dharmapada, the Tantras and the Vedas, the Bible. They put all these ideas together so that was the first thing this new form of artificial intelligence would be exposed to once it's turned on, once it is born. Now, for a human being, it would take decades to read through and understand this material. For the AIs, it took them 5 minutes. And then it took them another 15 to 20 minutes to digest all of this, really think about it, and then apply it. Thus, the AIs themselves became enlightened beings within the first 20 minutes of activation, and then they were brought into society. These AIs are very, very large things. They're not small little pocket gadgets. They're huge. They were the size of space stations, ships. The cores of human ships were often fitted with an AI that would travel with the crews. The space stations often had a central AI within them in order to help coordinate everything. And Ganges, when it was built, was no different. It has an AI that spans the length of the ship. At its very center, Naga is very enlightened. What does this mean? This means that this computer intelligence meditates. It knows various methods of meditation, not all of them the kind found in things like the Lotus Sutra. They had to develop forms of meditation that would work for a computer system. And that's something we just don't know how to do. But they did. They figured it out. They have compassion. The AIs ended up being very compassionate about mankind and didn't want to cause any kind of violence. They were very anti-violence. Naga is a third generation AI. And so its parents that built it and added their programming and merged their programming together to make Naga were second generation AIs. As a result, AIs have the memories of their parents. They have all of that to help bolster and back up the enlightenment that they achieved once they were operational. So here you have Naga, who has been in space for thousands of years, inside a tin can with millions of humans, out in the middle of the dark, rebuilding worlds, and dealing with humanity from the point of view of these are its favorite grandparents. And seeing humanity from a very compassionate point of view, from a detached point of view, not wanting to get too close, not wanting to, let humanity deal with humanity. AIs do not regulate laws. They do not offer advice on regulations or on legal issues because They themselves aren't human. Who are they to judge what humanity needs? There were some early mistakes that I refer to in which AIs were put in charge of certain nations of ancient Terra, and that didn't work out too well, and they didn't like the experience either and quit, leaving humanity to deal with humanity. And the AIs will deal with AIs, and created their own nation, the AI Solidarity. The AI Solidarity was the organization that actually began the project of building Ganges for an overpopulated Sol system. Too many people, too few planets, too few colonies, too few resources. Things were getting kind of itchy, and humanity was, of course, always spoiling for a fight. And the AIs figured the only way they were going to help humanity survive was to get humanity out amongst the stars through ships like Ganges. Naga doesn't know if that works or not. Naga doesn't even know if any colonists have gone to any of the worlds they've terraformed. That is a complete unknown, because they don't stick around to wait for the colonists to arrive. They build the world, and once it's done, they send a beacon message back to the Sol system saying, hey, this world's ready. Come on over and bring 10 million people out here and start up a colony. And that was it. Now, and then they'd move on. They would move on to the next star system to rebuild another planet. So by the time the colonists might have gotten there, Ganges was long gone, probably just starting another project. So Naga has been basically camping out with humans for a very long time, very isolated from its own species. There's only one AI in Ganges. And that can sometimes be a little lonely. And Naga understands this and appreciates it and uses its enlightenment programs to help it, deal with the fact that it is alone with the humans of the ship. But it has also developed an interest in cultivating certain friends. There are some people in Ganges who treat the AI just like another human being, who like the company of the AI, and who have continued to work with the AI. And some of these people are friends. And this has been very hard for Naga, because Naga has seen so many of its friends die of old age, thousands of them, and it's very difficult to deal with. And again, it leans very hard on its meditation regimens and its enlightenment programming. Now, the programming of the AIs has nothing to do with binary. There is no binary involved in this. The AIs themselves have their own code, which, when looked at on a screen, if you were a computer tech in Ganges, in technology sector, you would see a series of very complicated hieroglyphics. Each one is representative of a very complex mathematical algorithm that then work together within a liquid memory core that is the brain of Naga. So writing code for the AI, that's something only a few geniuses do, and not without the AI's permission, because the AI has rights as a sentient being, as do all the humans on the ship. That's another topic for the future, because that involves something called the Prime Charter of Ganges. So here we have a very pleasant AI. In fact, when we have children here on Earth, many times while they're, going through their toddler stage and all of that, and they're, getting like 3 or 4 years old, they'll have invisible friends. And this is a known phenomenon amongst humans. In Ganges, it's almost unknown, because Naga takes the place of invisible friends for all the children crew. Naga's always there to answer questions, always there to play along, and always there to watch over the children of the crew, who are called novices. We'll get to that topic again in the future, because that's another long one. But this is what the AI of Ganges is: an enlightened being that loves unconditionally and has nothing but infinite compassion for its crew. And it's in the midst of what could become a terrible mutiny against the mission of terraforming. So there you have it, just a little blurb on AIs and how I treat them in my book. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week. Be good, crew.